Ahat squal to Noyap, Chukumantomi, Chase Thiam, to A squal to Seats. Good morning to each and every one of you. We thank the Creator for this beautiful day, and certainly thanking dear friend, dear brother Ian for this opportunity to share a little bit, very brief history of the lands of the Squamish people. Chukumantomi Eamon, Tanuch. It's Echnatum, ta Elktat, ta Melkchit, ta Swampchit, ta Squamish. Just thanking our ancestors for taking care of our lands of the Squamish people. To begin with, I'm going to share a song that comes from one of our ancestors from Squaichwai, known today as Lumberman's Arch, Sequaliat, late Aunt Sally. She gave this song to the people to share, giving thanks for what we have today, for what she had back then, and for what our ancestors had from time beginning, for everything that was provided from the land. And she also lost her husband as well. And she would sing the song early in the morning, asking the Creator for strength, for courage to continue on with each day, as she had a family to take care of, especially the grandchildren and the future children to come along. So this song is to give thanks for what the High Spirit or Creator or God provides for each and every one of us every day. To thank late Aunt Sally once again for that beautiful song, and for the time memorial for the Squamish people. We had a man that was created from the Creator, from God. His name was Constant, and he was created in Chiquasp, Gibson's Landing. He was provided a home, a longhouse to live in, and as days went by, each day or each evening he would have a dream. And in his dream he was told what he had to do for the survival of that day and days to come. So he listened very carefully to each of those dreams, and he did exactly what was shared with him. And a time after, a brother was created and brought down to Mother Earth, and he landed on top of his longhouse, and he was dancing on the roof. And with him he had a nuk ayamostin, an object concealing the face, which is known today as the schwaichwai, a mask dance today. It helps us celebrate special occasions. So these two men had lived together for a number of time, and they were created for each one a wife, and they started to populate the land. And during that time, the Creator said, Schlalten, Tskonsten. Through a dream, maybe a squish and a deer came to him. He says, I'm going to come to you, and I'm going to give up my life so that you can feed your family, feed yourself. And through the hide of my skin, you're going to make some clothing. And with certain parts of my body, you're going to make tools that you can use that will be useful. As well as Sklasalem, the grizzly bear, Tsolkway, the fish, and the plants and their roots. So each time they were given a gift, it was through a dream. And it came from the land, it came from the water. And that's how they sustained their lives. And that's how we do today as well. So time, years have gone by, and their children had multiplied. And eventually Schlalten was given or made his own home just down the bay of Howe Sound. And eventually different tribes of different people came to our Squamish territory. For whatever reason, they might be just exploring. But then they started to, for some reason, to start warring with our Squamish people. And we had to protect, they had to protect what was provided for them in time beginning. The land, the resources, the waters. And not too long ago, up in Howe Sound, we have a place called Sechosam, Potlatch Creek. There, Petsmuk, a warrior, had lived his life there. And one of the ladies from up north, Kwalaok, from the northern tribes, I believe it was Aniskas, had came down and they fell in love with each other. And they decided to get married. So the wife, our new bride-to-be, Kwalaok, sent word back to her people up north and saying, I'm going to be marrying the Squamish man here. We want my family to come down and reunite or unite with them. And she also sent word that they didn't want any more warring because the tribes would go and raid of the resources, the food of the women and children, because eventually the families were getting so numerous that it was all related to one another. And they couldn't marry their first, second, third cousins. And so I guess they decided to go to different lands and look for future wives so the bloodlines would be kind of reached out further. So when the marriage came, it lasted for 3 months. And that's why they call it Potlatch Creek. And then after the 3 months, Kwalaok's family went back home. But eventually they came in to visit their new family, the new in-laws, us, the Squamish people. So then with that nation, those people, the tribe, the warring ended. So about the 1700s, the arrival of different peoples, one with lighter skin, came in our territory. And we went out and greeted them, and we called it a floating island, which was a big sailing ship. We went aboard their big canoes, and we talked with the captain. And one of our people, once they seen them, they said that they were dead people because their skin was so pale. And they had a black hood over their head. And the one that they spoke to was smoking a pipe, and they called him the one that breathes fire and blows smoke. So being aboard this big island they called a ship, the sailing ship, they met with non-native people, and they said it is time for us to go back home. And so they jumped into their canoes, but before they left, the captain started lowering down some gifts to our Squamish people, and they put them into the canoes, a few barrels and boxes, which was molasses, whiskey, pilot bread, silver money that our Squamish people had looked at once they returned back to Stotmas, known as Squamish today. So they said that was the first experience they had with Whaleton's non-native people. And as time went on, our people had noticed that these Whaletons were coming into our territories, and they started to, I guess, remove our people from certain villages that our Squamish people had frequently lived at, seasonal. So our Squamish people decided, well, what we're going to have to do is protect once again our lands, not from the other native people, but now from the Whaletons, the non-native people. So from time beginning until today, and probably will happen in the next years to come, that we as Squamish people will have to protect our resources, protect our lands, protect our waters, everything that is provided for us here today, so that we can live our lives tomorrow and many years to come. And I could share a story. In 2009, we have a canoe journey that's called Tribal Journeys that happens every year, started in 1989, from two elderly men from Seattle. Said, we're losing our youth to drugs and alcohol. Our culture is going to be lost if we don't do anything. So they said, we're going to have a canoe trip up to Seattle, which took them a number of days. And when they arrived into Seattle, they gathered and they shared their songs and dances and gave thanks for that safe arrival. And one of the elders said, we should have this every 4 years. And the other elder says, no, we're going to have this every year because we're going to lose our youth if we have it every 4 years. So that's how Tribal Journeys had started. And it's different hosts up and down the coast of Canada and the United States. And then up until maybe 8 to 10 years ago, it was mostly the native people that were on Tribal Journeys. But word spread out and many people across Mother Earth started to join us. And we accepted them as our extended family. And we listened to their songs and their dances and their stories. And with that journey, let's say we're leaving Squamish, Ambleside, and we're going to Tawasin for our next stop, paddling down to maybe Suquamish. So we'd leave the shores of Squamish, Ambleside. We'd load up into our canoes. We'd come ashore. We'd ask permission to leave. And once given permission to leave, we'd turn our canoes and head towards Tawasin. And when we arrive in Tawasin, our Squamish canoe family would sing a song when we enter into their waters to let the ancestors know. And at times they have their canoes waiting at the edge of their waters between Tawasin and Squamish. So we'd sing one of our songs. We'd stop paddling and we'd put our paddle up in the air with a sailor's eye facing forward, saying, we come in peace and we honor your waters and we ask permission to come across and go into your territory. And then the skipper of the canoe would talk to our skipper or whoever may be, asked permission to go into the waters and receive permission, give permission to the Squamish people. And we'd continue on a number of miles to get to Tawasin. So once we reach the shores of Tawasin, we paddle in bow first. and we have our paddles up, coasting and not touching the land. So the skipper would say from us off, he'd say, Uncle Buck, Hampton could do the honors. And so I'd stand up with my paddle in the air and I'd talk to the person on the beach, maybe a chief, an elder, along with their people. So I would acknowledge them, acknowledge the ancestors of the land, and I'd say who we are, once again by word. I said, we shared our canoe journey song from our young Chief Ian Campbell when we came into your waters. We'll share it again, and now we're asking permission to come ashore to have a meal, to share songs, to share stories with our relatives now of the Tawasan people. And once given permission to come ashore, we would turn a canoe around and we'd go in backwards, saying, if you don't trust us, here's our back. You could shoot us in the back if you think that we are coming to raid your people of the women and children, maybe the resources. So we give you our back to shoot us. And then once we come ashore, we hop out of the canoe. We make sure the canoe, the cohort, is taken care of. We cover them up. And then we go up into the longhouse of our host nation, the Tawasan people. And there we're given a meal. And then after we share our songs, our dances, our stories of the Squamish people. Not only the Squamish people and their canoes of Tawasan territory, but everybody that's traveling on travel journeys. There could be up to 118 canoes that can land on the shores of any given host up and down the coast. So each canoe would be given an opportunity to ask permission to go ashore of the Tawasan people, or the Lami, Squamish, Shishalt, Slyaman, Suquamish, Tulalip, everybody that hosts travel journeys. It is also drug and alcohol free. So once we give homage to those territories, the waters of the land, of the people, we are given gifts as we sklaosh, I guess, potlatch with each other. Because Tawasan, each host nation would give each person on travel journeys a small token of appreciation to honor their invitation to come to their territory to host travel journeys. So if anybody doesn't come in and share their songs or ask permission to come ashore and say, well, here, I'm not coming in peace, that is an invitation to war. It may take a few minutes, it may take a few days, it may take a few months, or it may take even years for that war, that battle to end. So that is why we give an idea of who we are, Squamish, saying this is Squamish, we come in peace. We don't want to take any resources, we don't want to take any of your women or children. We have those at home, but we take your hospitality. So when each and every one of you, our dear friend, our extended family of the Squamish people, the Hualitans and the non-natives, when you pay homage to the Squamish, every time you greet us, that gives us honor, especially our ancestors that have fought from the very two first men of the Squamish people up until yesterday, today, and many years to come. And we acknowledge that you are friends. We don't have to take our weapons and prepare ourselves to go to war with you. So we thank you once again when you give homage to our ancestors, to our elders, to our peoples today, saying once again that you acknowledge that this is Squamish territory and or with Tsleil-Waututh and the Homatskiam peoples, our relatives. So we thank you once again, and this is just a brief, I guess, introduction or history of our lands and why we pay homage to them as well. And I forgot to mention in 2009, I mentioned our Hawaiian family We started from Stoutmas up in Squamish. We went to Quomcum, Defence Island, just maybe a couple hours paddle from Squamish. When we came into the beach of Defence Island, I stood up and I told our ancestors we're the Cohoes, we're the Squamish, and we're bringing in our new extended family of the Hawaiians. We asked permission to bring them to the bay, to the shore, and have a little rest. So I stood there and I talked to the ancestors because there was no one standing on the shores in Defence Island. So I gave a minute or two of silence and I thanked, acknowledged our ancestors, and I sat down. And our skipper let us sit there for a short while, and then we turned the canoe around and we went ashore. Once again, we introduced ourselves and our Hawaiian family. Because after travel journeys, our canoe family of the Cohoes goes to Quomcum, and we spend maybe 2 or 3 days. And whenever we bring somebody new to the island, our ancestors are roaming around, wondering who the people are. So through our sacred ceremony, we tell our ancestors that this is Hawaii, this is New Zealand, Australia, Japan, England, whoever may be coming to us through travel journeys or through friendship, that we are bringing them here to Quomcum so that you will know who they are. And after that ceremony, our visitors weren't bothered by noises at nighttime or by kind of strange dreams that our ancestors would have them have while they were sleeping. Sometimes they shared some of those dreams, I guess nightmares you may call them, about what they have seen in their dreams. And we said as a canoe family, as Squamish, as we have to do the ceremony to let our ancestors know that this is our friends that come into our territory and they're going to stay for a visit for a little while. And we do that up and down the coast, as I mentioned, in travel journeys, but not only in the canoes, but also if we may be driving in the tutquam, the cars, whichever way maybe we travel. We will walk into a house and we'll announce ourselves to our friends and to their family of the people that are hosting us. So Chukumantomi Kiatsiyam, just thanking you once again, my dear respected ones, for this opportunity to share just briefly of what and why we pay homage to the land and give permission, ask permission to go ashores in any of our territories. Chukumantomi Siyam.